Welcome, welcome. All right, you guys, come here. I need to show you something. I'm standing here at the corner of Cooper's Alley and Upper Broadway in downtown Corpus. You have probably driven past this corner 100 times, maybe 1,000. And I guarantee that you had no idea what happened here. I didn't either until I went digging. And what I found is the kind of thing that is going to make you stop and just stare at the ground. Because two men are buried here. Like literally right here at this corner in downtown Corpus Christi. And almost nobody knows their names. Let me tell you why. It was May of 1862, and the Civil War was tearing this country apart. In Corpus Christi, your city was caught right in the middle of it. Now, here is something that most people do not know about this city. In 1860, Corpus Christi had just under 3,000 people. Yep, and this city was divided. Not divided like people disagreed at Thanksgiving dinner. Divided like your neighbor might turn you in. Yeah, your business partner might be your enemy. The people of the city were living side by side, Confederate supporters and Union supporters, in the same streets, the same shops, the same neighborhoods. Yeah, that matters. Remember that, because it is about to get very relevant. The entire Texas coastline was under blockade by a Union warship called the USS Arthur, commanded by a man named Acting Lieutenant John W. Kittredge. Yes, and Kittredge, he was not playing around. He had been patrolling these waters for months. Bold, aggressively, causing near panic up and down the coast. Texas military officials were gravely concerned about him. Coastal residents were terrified, just sitting out there, watching, waiting. Can you imagine? You live here. You look out at the water every single day, and there is a warship just sitting there a few miles away at Camp Aransas, a Confederate outpost on Shellbank Island. Soldiers were cracking. The blockade was tightening. Confederate conscription was forcing men into the service who had no interest in fighting for the Confederacy. And that Union ship just sitting right off of the coast, it must have looked like salvation. So in May of 1862, 4 enlisted Confederate soldiers decided that they were done. Yeah, they stole a launch in the middle of the night. And they rowed. They rowed for the Arthur. 4 men rowing towards freedom in the dark. Yeah, and they almost made it. And 1 man was shot dead in the water right before he reached the ship. 1 man escaped into the night and was never ever caught. And 2 men were captured. Now here is where the story gets really dark. Those 2 men captured, both reportedly from New York, not Southern boys, not men who believed in the Confederate cause, conscripted Northerners who had been forced into the Confederate uniforms against their will. And they just wanted to go home. They were court-martialed immediately. No long trial, no appeals, swift, done. And the sentence was carried out by a man named Captain John Ireland. Remember that name. I will come back to it. Captain John Ireland hanged those 2 men right here. Yeah, at this intersection in the middle of your city. In May of 1862, they were not given coffins. Yeah, they were not given a funeral. They were not given a grave. They were buried where they fell. Right here at this corner, underneath my feet right now. But here's the part that made my stomach drop when I found it out. After the hanging, Confederate soldiers, they went through this city and they rounded up the Unionist civilians of Corpus Christi. And remember, I told you the city was divided. This is where that becomes everything. People who quietly supported the Union, families, neighbors, people who had absolutely nothing to do with that desertion, they were forced at gunpoint, guys, to come stand right here and look at the bodies. Yeah, and on those bodies, placards, signs around the neck of the dead men. One read, "Traitors, take warning." The other read, "Union men beware." They used these dead men as a billboard in your city in 1862. The message was crystal clear. This is what we do. And if you are thinking what I think you're thinking, yep, it worked. After that day, many Corpus Christi Unionists, they packed up their families and they crossed the border to Matamoros, Mexico. And they left their homes, they left their businesses, everything that they had built because of what happened right here on this corner. And I want to tell you what happened to the man who caused all of this. Lieutenant Kittredge, the bold Union commander sitting out there on the Arthur, the man whose ship those four soldiers were trying to reach. He didn't get away either. Just a few months later, September 14th of 1862, Kittredge, he went ashore at Flower Bluff under a flag of truce. And Confederate cavalry were waiting for him, guys. He was captured, along with 7 of his men. The man who had caused near panic along this entire Texas coast for months. Just a few miles from where we are standing right now. And then the Confederates, they looted the homes of the known Union supporters in this city after the battle. Yeah, neighbor against neighbor. In the streets you still walk today. Now, I told you to remember Captain John Ireland, the man who ordered those 2 men to be hanged, the man who terrorized Unionist families in this city. You want to know what happened to him? He became the 18th governor of the state of Texas. Let that sink in. The man who did this later ran this entire state. But wait, because I am not done. Here is the detail that nobody talks about. Confederate military records, the Confederacy's own paperwork, it reveals that 3 other deserters were shot that same night. Yeah, while, quote, trying to escape. 3 more men on top of the 2 who were hanged, whether they were actually trying to escape or whether they were executed without a trial, nobody knows. The Confederacy's own records don't explain it. And those men, they don't even have a marker. So let me give you the full count. 2 men hanged publicly at this corner and buried where they fell. 3 more shot under circumstances that were never explained. 1 man escaped into the dark and was never found. 1 man died trying to reach that Union ship in the water. 7 men, 1 night, 1 desperate attempt at freedom. And right here at this corner in your city, 2 of them are still here. No names on the marker. No names in the history books. 2 men from New York who ended up in Confederate uniforms in South Texas and tried to row their way to freedom. And they didn't make it. There is a historical marker at this corner, and it was put up in 2016, 150 years after it happened. And most people drive past it every single day without ever reading it, without ever knowing. And now you know. This is the city that you live in, and this is the ground that you walk on. And the truth, it was never a straight line. And that is your curveball. Bizarre, beautiful, true. And I'll see you in the shadows.